Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it's Mr. Martin, and I'm here to talk about our assignment, our pop art stencil assignment. And so I have a few things here, a few supplies here that you'll need to know about, and I'm going to go through the whole process. First thing I have is my printout. This is a guy named Elvis Costello. He's a singer, one of my favorite singers, and you can see that I've made a really high contrast print from a photograph of him. And then, of course, I have a cutting mat, I have an X-Acto knife, I have a Sharpie marker. I'll explain more about that. And I have this this yellowish sort of harder paper. It's called Manila Oak Tag. Oak like a tree, tag like a thing you find on something in a store. Manila Oak Tag. So I'm going to show you what this whole process involves. Something else that I neglected to mention, you are going to need some tape. So you can see that I've got some just regular masking tape here, and I'm going to tear off a few pieces of masking tape. I don't know, 6 or 8 pieces of masking tape, because I'm going to need to tape down my my little print here onto my oak tag so that it stays where I need it to stay while I'm cutting. And it's kind of a dicey process. Because as I start cutting stuff away, it might want to move. But before I do any of that, I need to show you these little areas right here aren't going to do me any good. They're going to be really hard to cut out, and they're not going to add substantially to the design. So I'm going to take my Sharpie marker, that's what this is for, and I'm going to clean up any areas like that, just to make those slightly rough areas a little bit less rough, to firm up that line. And I'm just going to arbitrarily take all of that out. I don't need that. I can clean up that line right there. These are cool, these guitar strings and stuff, but they're going to make it really hard to cut that out, and I think I can live without them. So I'm going to cut that away. Remember that my black is what's getting cut out. All of this would make it, it wouldn't survive anyway, because the black, and when I cut the black away, it's going to take the white too. So I'm going to clean that up, and I'm going to get rid of it. Now up here, I can make this work because I can cut, I can leave these little frets attached to this white here, so it'll be all right. I'm going to clean this up too, just making it a little bit easier to cut. I'm not looking to make this any harder to do than it has to be. Okay, so as you can see, I simplified it a great deal. And I'm going to just pretend that this black stuff that's right here isn't even there. And I'm just going to leave that attached to the white. Okay, there are a couple of areas I'm looking here, and if I don't figure out a way to attach these two white pieces together, when I go to cut this out, his forehead's just going to disappear. So I'm putting a piece of tape there to remind myself that, I want to be careful right there. I don't want to cut where the stem of his glasses are. I don't want to cut that, because if I do, his forehead's going to just disappear. And the other thing is, he's got a mustache. And this mustache is attached right here to his mouth. And that's not good either. So I'm going to put a piece of tape there to remind myself that I got to be careful around that. And so I'm going to artificially add a little white space here and a little white space there to connect these together so that I don't cut them away accidentally. So now I'm going to attach this to my oak tag. So I have my oak tag, and it's it's like the thickness of a business card. And it's not expensive stuff, but it's not cheap stuff either, so we want to do this once. We don't want to mess up and do it many times. So when you're cutting, you do have to pay attention. You don't want to make the mistake of cutting something away and ruining your whole stencil, because then you're going to have to start over, and that gets not only expensive in terms of materials, but really expensive in terms of your time, which obviously this close to the end of the marking period, we don't have a lot of. Remember that I'm cutting out the black. Okay, so I'm eventually going to get a ruler here, and I'm going to go down here, and I'm going to cut this and cut that. But for right now, I'm going to show you that I'm cutting up here. So just like anything else that you do with an X-Acto knife, it's better to do it a couple times than it is to do try to do it all at once, but sometimes on these little teeny tiny cuts, you do want to press a little harder maybe than you normally would, because you don't want to be doing it 50,000 times to get your cut all the way through. And understand that when you do this, you are going to have to go back when you take this paper off and make those cuts a little deeper. Some of them are not going to be all the way connected. It's very unlikely that this is just all going to lift right out of here and everything will go fine. As I mentioned before, I simplify these lines. His hair is like really complicated. So I'm going to simplify that a little bit just so that it goes a little faster. Still looks good. It still looks good. Still is interesting to look at. Just trying to get a line that I can follow that will go more quickly. And you don't have to go as fast as I'm going. That's not really the point. Okay, the point is to get it done well. My point is to do this before my iPhone fills up with video. I'm going to ignore those black spots in the center of his ears. Really not helpful to me. I might add one later, like the biggest one. Cutting out his sideburns. I'm skipping the glasses stem because I want everything to be attached. So I'm going right through, going right around his forehead. Remember to be careful, use proper knife safety. Don't cut toward your hand. That is never a good plan. If you overcut edges, remember that we cut edges in corners. We go past the corner. Don't do it too much because you're trying to get fine detail here, but still, overcutting the corners is a better way to go. Notice that I have to hold on to my paper because it'll move, because the tape's around the outside, it's not on the inside. Just for the heck of it, I'm going to make these two pieces one. The glasses and the little shadow that's on his face. Okay, we're getting to that tricky spot. He's got a mustache here, and the mustache line comes down and touches the black of his mouth. But if I do that, I'm going to lose the white of his upper lip, so I'm going to artificially separate the mustache and the mouth so that there's white, continuous white from here right into the upper lip. And as you can see, I'm moving pretty quickly. This is not, I'm trying to do this whole demonstration for you in a couple of minutes. I would rather that you spend a little more time than I'm spending on it, getting it nice and neat and clean. But you should be able to get some sense of how this is done from what I'm showing you. Mr. Seitz and I were talking about this the other day, and we were talking about how we do these demonstration pieces for you, and sometimes you guys might be under the impression that this is the way that we make art all the time. And it's not. This is what our art looks like going a million miles an hour. So understand that art is something that happens based on a significant attachment to craftsmanship and really spending a lot of time doing a good job. I just cut all those frets off. Again, not what I would do if this was something that I was planning on displaying on the wall, but something I might do when I'm trying to do a fast demonstration for you guys. I'm going to turn this as I cut it because it's easier for... a lot of people don't know this. When you're using an X-Acto knife, we never want to cut toward our hands. You never want to cut toward your hand. You never want to hold like this. But it is always easier to pull toward you than it is to push away from you. And so this, for example, is not an easy move. But I do that so that I didn't have to flip the whole thing around. But if you're doing a nice long cut, you want to make sure really that you do move your move your cutting mat, move what you're cutting, so that you are pulling toward you like I'm doing right now. Turn that and cut toward me. Overcut the corners just a little bit, not a lot. So ladies and gentlemen, I thought it would be a good idea to show you what everything looks like when it's all done. So this is my original print that I started from, and as you saw, I taped it down to my oak tag and I did all of my cutting, and that's my stencil right there. So you can see it's not exactly the same, but it's pretty darn close. And this is ready to go now. Now I can take this stencil, I can lay it down on the paper that I create, the textured paper I create, and I can use my spray paint, or I can stamp some paint over this, and we'll be good to go.